Welcome back, everyone. Today's lecture largely focuses on informative speaking, which is the first general purpose that we're really tackling this semester. And then towards the end of the semester, we'll shift and focus on persuasive speaking. But for now, we're going to talk about informative speaking and the utility of these speeches, the types of speeches you can do so you can start to brainstorm and think about topics moving forward. So, the main goals of informative speaking is to provide knowledge, share perceptions on different ideas, opinions, those kinds of things, to articulate alternatives without that persuasive lean, and allowing us to survive and evolve. So informative speaking is how we teach others, right? And in this class, we're going to talk about andragogy, which is teaching adults, and that's largely our purpose here in class, is teaching our peers some new knowledge, some new skills moving forward. Okay, so a little bit more. Why do we speak informatively? We speak to enhance audience understanding. We want to shoot to maintain their interest the entire time. So we are building in that attention getter at the very beginning of our speeches. But then, speaking informatively, how are we going to keep them engaged throughout the body and conclusion of our speech too? Are you remembered when the speech is over? And that's what we have these pictures for down here. So this is Martin Luther King Jr., right? And we remember him most for "I have a dream," right? That small phrase that he repeated over and over and that still permeates our lives today. And just so you guys know, he said "I have a dream" 11 times in his speech. 11 times. So building in redundancy might seem so repetitive to you as a speaker, but it is very effective when used well in your speeches. And here we have Robin Williams, and I'm sure you've all seen at least one Robin Williams movie with his eloquent speaking that you're so engaged when you're watching the movie and you're very wrapped up in his words. He's very dynamic and engaging speaker. And then over here we have Bill Clinton, and he was president of the United States, right? So there should be lots of things that we know and remember this powerful man for. And what do we typically remember him by? Him saying things like, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman," right? So he is remembered after being the president of the United States for 2 terms, that phrase. So are you remembered when the speech is over, and are you remembered positively? Okay, so informative speakers have a large responsibility, right? You have to be objective as an informative speaker. So your general purpose to inform, you have to maintain that objective stance in presenting information. You have to be credible. So you have to build that credibility not only in your intro, but maybe you're likely to provide some experiences or some other knowledge, some research that you've done, those kinds of things, tips and tricks to a procedure, something like that you're including throughout the body of the speech to remind people that you are credible and knowledgeable about a topic. Knowledgeable is also up here. So you have to be knowledgeable, passionate, kind of an expert on a topic. You are being seen as such in the public speaking presentation realm. So being very knowledgeable about your topic. And then you have to make sure that the topic is relevant, that the information you are presenting is relevant, not only to the audience, but to the context, the situation, all those sorts of things. And then we'll talk about some different types of informative speeches here. There's descriptive, definitional, explanatory, and demonstrative. And I'm going to give you some ideas or things to think about as we go through the rest of the lecture. And you'll see how they might play on one or the other or fit certain types of informative speeches best. So descriptive speeches. This is when you explain the meaning of something, especially something unfamiliar. Definitional speeches here are when you paint a picture, so typically of a noun. So you're painting the picture of how something looks, tastes, feels, all those sorts of things. And explanatory and descriptive here are a little bit similar, but not really when you get down to it. So descriptive, again, painting that picture. Explanatory, explaining how or why something is done. Okay, and then we have demonstrative speeches, and this is like a procedure speech, what we'll be focusing on largely for speech 2. Okay, so let's talk about some of these. There's speeches about objects, nouns. So thinking about what might these fit into. Am I going to explain the noun descriptively? Am I going to explain the noun explanatorily? How or why something exists? How or why something is done? So be thinking about what stance you're going to take. Organize your topic even before you've set it into an organizational pattern there, okay? So maybe you're going to tell us about Mr. Potato Head, traveling Greece, Mount Rushmore, the Great Wall of China, wine tasting, all these different things that you can talk about relative to the item or object or place as a noun. Maybe you're going to talk about speeches about a procedure, so maybe chronological organization, so how to grow a patio herb garden, how to tape a hockey stick, how to tie-dye a t-shirt, right? And then you might be stuck in thinking stuff like, well, I'm really passionate about this, I'm an expert on this, I've been tie-dyeing a shirt since I was 5 years old. I remember doing it at camp. Or I've known how to tape a hockey stick since I started playing at age 7, so I'm going to teach you how to do it. And then you step back and say, well, how am I going to relate this to my audience? Maybe people don't play hockey. Maybe they're never going to want to tie-dye a shirt. Who knows? Always tie it back. Find that way. So maybe the moms in the room or the girls in the room are going to be moms someday and have sons that want to play hockey, and they'll remember back to your speech and know exactly how to tape the hockey stick, those kinds of things. So find those connections. They are there for nearly every topic. Okay, speeches about people. So thinking back here, how could I approach speeches about people? Might it be the Beatles, Cal Ripken Jr., the royal couple, Coach K? All of those could be informative speeches. The important things they've done in their life, the precedents they've set, new things that they've brought into the world, all that kind of stuff. So speeches about people are other options. Speeches about events like Woodstock, Prohibition, JFK's assassination, Color Me Rad. So the events themselves, how they've influenced society, what stance might you take with those? You can also do speeches about ideas. So like witchcraft, communism, success and failure, conspiracy theories are often interesting to explore in informative speeches, and those sides that people often choose to take within those conspiracy theories. Do they buy in or not, right? Okay, and then we're going to get into informative speeches. You really want to ask yourself, do you understand what I'm saying of yourself and of the audience? So you really want to shoot for speaking with clarity. And I'm going to give you this rule here. It says, remember the 30-70 balance. So thinking about presenting 30% of your message is new information to the audience, new stuff that largely the majority of the audience does not know. And then 70% is that balance. So how are you going to provide analogies, explanations, descriptions, other little experiences or stories to position that new information and make it relevant within the audience's life? So again, 30% new information, 70% supplementary information to position that 30%. And you want to mix it up, so you don't want to just present all new information at the very beginning and then tell a story. You want to give us little tidbits, supplement, little tidbits, supplement. Okay, and I mentioned this earlier, so using principles of andragogy, teaching adults. So you really want to make sure, again, that you're connecting with your audience, that the topic is relevant, that it relates to a problem in the audience's lives, perhaps. It's news we can use right away in our busy lives. So I guarantee if you asked everyone in the class, said, how many of you are busy? Almost all of us would raise our hand and probably like shake it in the air saying, I am so busy. Right? So you are here in this time. How are you going to make this relevant and useful and interesting to people watching you right then and there? Okay, so just other things to remember here and think about in support of that 70%, in support of your reasoning or your stance and how you're going to approach your informative speaking. You might use analogies, you might use descriptions, word pictures, all of those within your informative speaking. appealing to listeners' learning styles. So guys, we're always going to have the auditory and visual right in our class. We're always going to be using our voices in public speaking, and we're always going to be able to see each other. Sometimes you might use a visual aid. You might throw up some visual print on a PowerPoint. You might actually show us how to do something online, or you might just be moving from one side of your screen to the other, for instance, to show that you are transitioning within your speech, all of those things. So thinking about how you can combine all of this stuff, these stories, these word pictures, these analogies, to support your goal in your informative speech. Another thing to think about is, can you tell a story? Can you induce some conflict, some action, some suspense? Can you use some humor to position your ideas, explain your ideas, and make them relevant to your audience? You want to present information that really relates to the listener, and it's often a good tool to use the unexpected to entice your listener and keep them coming back for more. All right, tips to enhance audience recall. So I have this over here, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. So build in this redundancy. Use numeration, signposting, previews, and summaries to really hit your message. So hammer it home, okay? Make ideas short and simple, pace your information flow, that 30-70 rule, and reinforce your ideas both verbally and non-verbally. So maybe you're saying first we covered, second we covered, those kinds of things. So using all of your means, all of your listening styles, and applying them as much as possible to make your message heard. Guys, I've also included a link in this week's module to show you a funny video of a flight attendant that's taking her informative speaking obligations to a humorous level, though she's still implementing a lot of these things that we talked about today, and really gained the attention of her audience, made her talk relevant, and I bet everyone on the plane was paying attention to her. So take a look at that video, think back over this lecture and the content from your text, and as always, email me with any questions.